Russ, they're watching. They're watching.
Oh. Hello.
Put it away, man. Put it away. Hey!
Welcome to our home.
We didn't see you there. Welcome back to Home on the RNG.
Welcome back.
Today I picked a game because I'd heard of it. Really, that was kind of my criteria.
You have pretty high criteria.
I have some exacting standards. So today we are playing the Sega Master System, Phantasy Star 1.
Now, as an aside, can I tell you that I was like 25 years old before I knew what a Sega Master System was?
This actually may be the good time to tell the story of Daniel, because Daniel is the Sega Master System boy. My friend Daniel, my college roommate, the Sega Master System came out, it was around the same time as the NES. The two were competitors, even though most people never heard of the Sega Master System.
I know I didn't. We were a Nintendo family.
And Daniel, like every kid our age, wanted a Nintendo. So his mother went to the store to purchase a Nintendo, and the store clerk talked her into getting the Sega Master System instead. He said, no, trust me, you'll want this one instead. And of course his mom didn't know anything about video game systems, so she went, well, if that's what he'll like more, that's what I'll get. And poor Daniel was the only kid with a Sega Master System, and nobody wanted to go over to his house to play video games.
Aww.
It was so very traumatic for him. In fact, I think it may have been what killed him.
But they could have played Phantasy Star.
They could have played Phantasy Star.
But I can also tell you from personal experience what it is like to invite your childhood best friend over to your house to play video games, and you pull out Dragon Warrior, and they say, what the hell?
See, that's where we're different, because I was inviting kids over to play cool games like Aerial Biz.
You were.
Everyone
go out and Google Aerial Biz.
I was then. It is a Super Nintendo game. It is hard to find, but so worth it. So worth it. Anyway, we have gotten way off track. Let's get into our personal histories with Phantasy Star.
Phantasy Star. So my personal history for Phantasy Star is actually a little different than the other games. Like I just said, I didn't know what a Sega Master System was until I was an adult. I didn't understand if it came before or after the Genesis, or if it was the same thing as the Genesis, or what was going on. So I didn't play this game as a kid. I didn't play it till I was an adult, and I think the first time that I ever played it, or the first system I played it on, was the Game Boy Advance remake for it. So I don't really have much of a history of this until we played it for this review. I had actually never beaten it. So this was a fun one for me to play, just because it was a new journey and not just revisiting an old classic.
I got nothing. I mean, I hate to do the same joke again, but I got nothing. I'd heard of the game. So this game is an example of all of the types of games that made me want to create this project, as an excuse to play through all these games I'd heard of but never played. This is another one of those. Never touched the thing. Was curious what it was about. Had an excuse to actually play a game. Here we are. We have our handy synopsis written by the famous author Jeff Hillary, author of The Great Platypus Caper and The Coconut Monkey Horror.
Buy them today.
Buy them tomorrow. Buy them every day. On a small planetary system with 3 inhabitable planets, the king has turned into an evil tyrant. Some people have tried to rise up against him. None have succeeded. The last person to try was the older brother of our main character. With his dying breath, he hands his sword off to his little sister and sends her in search of a companion on her quest to avenge him.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. That is how you write a synopsis.
That is how you write a synopsis.
So we have a female lead.
It's not a meet cute at a county fair.
With an accident at a county fair.
Yeah. It is a female lead. That's what I was going to say. That I love this game for that. This was not only one of the first, if not like the first RPG that really
that came west.
that came west and that didn't just have a blank slate main character. The main character had a past and had her own personal motivations.
There is
it was
no
a her.
sexism
It was
in this
a
game
woman.
either.
There isn't.
At no point does anybody be like, oh, please, what threat is she going to have? No.
Right.
The brother, when he's dying, doesn't go, I guess I have to give you my sword even though you're a girl.
Yeah.
No, he just says, go get him!
She doesn't pick up the sword against anybody's wishes. She doesn't run away from home. She's just a warrior.
I guess it helps that it was in the future.
Yeah.
Also, there's a talking cat.
Always good.
Two of your 4 party members are the female main character and a talking cat. So really, it's your standard traditional JRPG. Nothing new, nothing interesting.
Yeah.
Did you? I was gonna say, did you want to talk about the other 2 guys?
Yeah. Then you get your generic warrior and your not generic, but you get your warrior and your mage dudes that are more typical of other RPGs.
So, I guess it's time to move on to the combat system. So, if you've played Dragon Warrior, the combat system here should be fairly familiar. It's a first-person point of view with your character stats lined up at the bottom and a single enemy image. Although that single enemy image can represent multiple of the same enemy.
Yeah, it was a little confusing to me at first. It reminded me of the way that Final Fantasy Legends stacked monsters.
Although this one is a little bit nicer because you know how many there are. I think it was harder to tell in Final Fantasy Legends. Although the really irritating thing for me is when you're fighting a multiple stacked monster, you can't control which one of those monsters you're hitting. Your party tends to spread it out. Like, your party doesn't just gang up on one, kill it, like most of us do when we play games. You attack the weakest one, you kill it, then you move on to the next. Your party tends to hit them randomly. Is there anything else you had for combat?
No, I mean, it's
very typical.
standard.
Yeah.
It's a very typical combat system.
Yeah, there's nothing new in the combat system. We've all seen it before.
Yeah, and most of your magic is relegated to the mage character.
Yeah.
And, everybody plays their own role. There's nothing really customizable about it.
I think I barely use magic in this game. I don't use magic in most games.
You really don't use magic a lot.
Well, it's a finite resource.
Yeah.
So next, we'll go into what this game has a lot of. Innovation. I'd like to start off with a pet peeve, or probably the biggest irritant I had with this game, and I need this for it, and you'll see why in a second. But it's how little guidance the game actually gives you in terms of where to go next. A lot, especially the early JRPGs, are pretty good about, I've heard of strange sounds coming from the cave to the west, or my friend just barely escaped from that town to the north. This game, I'm going to give you the first quest. When you first get your sword, the only thing you know from your dying brother is that you need to go find Odin. And that's the name of your typical warrior companion. You need to go find Odin. That's it.
Japanese name, Tyrone.
Tyrone. You got to go find Tyrone. You've got 3 planets he could be on, including the one you're currently standing on. No guidance. He could be anywhere. However, if you save up enough money from fighting monsters to buy a black market passport that you don't know that A, you need, or B, that's the item you're actually buying, because you actually have to pester that one particular merchant over and over again to sell you a secret thing. And you have to do it multiple times until he gives you a black market passport that you don't know you need. Then you go to the desert planet using the black market passport to get on this transport to go to the desert planet and give the merchant on a desert planet town a pot that you got from a random guy in the first town, provided you talked to everybody. Then you'll recruit a talking cat who has a potion to free Odin from being a statue. Again, you don't know where Odin is still, but now you've got a talking cat who has a potion to free him. So then you wander back in the first world until you find a random cave. Then you wander through the cave, which is a maze, as all the caves are, and eventually, in that cave somewhere, is Odin. So to complete the first mission, You need to find an item you don't know you need from a guy you don't know who sells it, go to a world you know nothing about, give an item you know nothing about that you may not have even gotten to a character that you don't know needs it. In return, you will get a talking cat who will tell you he can help you free Odin, but not tell you that Odin is back on the original planet in a random cave in a statue at the end of a maze.
What a daunting task for a young woman and her cat.
That is very typical of this game.
Yeah.
It does not give you...
And you're really right about that. Most RPGs of this time did give you some clue by talking to your NPCs. That was the whole motivation for talking to the NPCs in the first place, was to tell you where you're supposed to go and what you were supposed to do.
The other thing I don't like about it is an isometric dungeon crawler, like Arcana. It is first-person perspective, blocking a block at a time, twisting and turning through these massive mazes, with occasional hidden passages. Don't like isometric dungeon crawlers. They're ugly, they're claustrophobic, and it's so easy to get lost. And I don't get that thrill of excitement that most young gamers seem to get out of drawing my own maps as I go.
Oh.
I don't need my video game to give me work. I'm here to play a story. Don't give me homework too.
So you wouldn't like the game that makes you go bake a cake?
No, not if it made me bake a cake in the real world.
Yes, you have to. There's a game that makes you bake a cake in the real world and upload a photograph of it.
Can I just buy one?
Well.
Okay. So there are the things I don't like. Oh. One more thing I didn't like is not only do you not know which weapons are better before you buy them, like in previous games, but in this game you don't even know who can equip what weapon or armor piece until you buy it. Then you go through your party and hope one of them can equip it and hope it's stronger than what they had on before. Yeah.
So you had a good time doing that.
Well, and I feel like I've been bashing on this for a while now. I like the cutscenes a lot. A lot of the cutscenes actually had portraits of the characters up close when they talk, and I thought the portraits actually looked really nice.
That was a good thing I think a lot of Sega RPGs did that Nintendo didn't really replicate in that time period.
I thought the portraits looked very nice considering the technology available. I thought it gave the game a very good atmosphere. Health items are sold in what I think is a fast food shop. I can't be sure because what's it called? It's called a first food shop. Every time you go into one, they say, "Welcome to first food."
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of grinding.
Yes.
There's so
it really
much
pads
grinding.
the length of the game.
Every time you finish a dungeon, you have to grind forever to get all the newest equipment you can get so you can go to the next dungeon.
That's what caused me to play all the other Phantasy Stars before this one, because you have to grind so much in the beginning.
The hospitals work like they did in Final Fantasy Legend, where you heal per damage, or it costs per damage.
Yeah,
so
however much damage you've taken.
Thank you. I don't know what happened to me. I had a stroke or something.
The HP that you have lost.
So it costs more to heal you if you're hurt more. But in the very first town, your next door neighbor will let you sleep there and heal up for free. So I just always went back to the first town after everything. It wasn't that hard once you had your own spaceship and ground transport. I'll just always go back to the first town, heal, go on to the next adventure. And this game did something that Nintendo RPGs didn't do for a long time afterwards. Not Dragon Quest, not Final Fantasy. Attack animations.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
The monsters actually move, and especially the ghoul. The ghouls have a particularly impressive and gruesome animation.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember. I can't remember an NES game where enemies actually moved.
No, I really don't either.
So I give this game a lot of credit for that, for putting in the extra effort. Mm-hmm. I feel like I've been bashing on the game a lot, but the cutscenes were great. They tried. They put in a lot of effort into this game, and it shows. I feel like they were pushing the technology as hard as they could. Yeah. And it really shows. Did you have anything else that stuck out to you?
No, I think you have really covered it in this one.
I actually liked this game.
Yeah.
I know, I realize now it doesn't sound like it considering the list of things I complained about. But most of those I will attribute to its age and the system it was on and the time it came out. Like, those are forgivable sins.
Mm-hmm.
The grinding is just what you did at that time.
I appreciate what it did in terms of the story for pushing it forward into what we have now, where there are diverse, believable characters with their own backstories and dynamic relationships, and I think they've pushed it in that direction.
Yeah, you definitely got to give it points for the main character being a chick and nobody cares.
Yeah.
So
For 1988.
next up, music. Yay! So once again, Lauren is tragically unable to join us.
That's sad.
Hopefully this will be our last video for a while without a music expert, because Russ and I are not equipped for this. I will say this much. I liked the music in the game. I liked the soundtrack.
Sure.
I was okay with it.
I'll say, I got nothing.
That's fair. But what do you got?
What I do got is it looks like the composer was Tokuhiko Uwabu, or Owabo, who went by Bo for a lot of the stuff that he composed. He was a
Oh my god.
He was a Sega composer.
Clearly.
So he composed for Phantasy Star 1 and 2. There's a Golden Axe.
Alex Kidd in Miracle World, Space Harrier 3D, Phantasy Star 2, Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic 3 and Knuckles,
I think I read that
Sonic 3.
Sonic and Knuckles was his first. Yes, Sonic. He composed Sonic and Knuckles in 1994, which was actually his last known game when he worked for Sega. So he worked for Sega up until 1994. And that's specifically what he composed.
That is a heck of
for.
a picture of him, by the way.
Yes. The picture that we're looking at is him, maybe as a child or just as a young adult, with the word "Bo" across his face.
So he was the original Lady Gaga.
Or Sia, isn't that chick's name?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
All I know is he did the music to Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. And that.
He was the sound advisor.
He is the Michael Jackson of video games.
I guess so. Congrats, Bo.
You go,
Uwabo, Mr. Uwabo.
You go, Bo.
Yep.
Bo knows music.
I guess the music was fine. I wasn't taken by the music like I was in...
I felt about the
something
music
like
the same
Lucia.
way I felt about like the cutscenes, whereas I felt it was more impressive than I was expecting.
Yeah. It pushed the envelope.
I mean, is it the greatest soundtrack ever? No, not by a long shot. But it is more than I was expecting from the game, given its day and age.
Yeah.
So, we'll go ahead and move on to final thoughts and wrap this up.
I thought this game was good. I think in the end, I was more impressed by what it did to advance future games than this particular game itself. It had a female protagonist. It had character with, a dynamic background story. I think it pushed the envelope in a lot of ways, and I think that sort of paved the way for, RPGs that we have today, so I really appreciate that. I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the game. I just think a lot of the gameplay mechanics were archaic. Overall, I would give it a B. So yeah, I would definitely play it again.
It's really weird how closely Russ and I have been agreeing these past 3 games, because I would also give this game a B. I think, honestly, the comment I made during the music section sums up how I most feel about this game. It gave me more than I was expecting it to. It tried harder than I expected in a lot of respects. I wish I could score it higher, but given no clue where to go, the equipment managing, the isometric dungeon crawling, all of that just... But man, they really tried. The graphics were good. The graphics were better than I was expecting. The music was better than I was expecting. The plot and the characterizations were better than I was expecting. Nobody commented on, she's just a woman. Which we got in Lufia 2. In Lufia 2, it was, she's the greatest warrior in our kingdom. Boys, protect her. In this game, it's my brother's dying. I must take up his sword and avenge him, and she does, and nobody says a word. So I give it a B. It's a solid game. I honestly probably wouldn't mind playing it again someday. I don't know that I will, but I am looking forward to Phantasy Star 2. So that was Phantasy Star.
Yay! Good choice. This has been good. This has been a good 3 games.
It has been. It was a pleasant. This one was a pleasant surprise. I mean, there were definitely parts that irritated, but it wasn't unexpected.
No.
The things that irritated me, I expected to irritate me in that way.
Yeah, better than what we expected for the time and the system.
So, Russ, it is your turn to pick a game. What are we playing next?
I'm so excited.
And you just can't hide it? Are you about to lose control?
I am about to lose control.
Do you think you like it?
I am about to lose control.
Do you think you like it?
I like it. I love it. I want some more of it.
Oh God, we've done a mashup now.
It tries so hard, and I can't rise above it. I don't know the rest of that song. Anyway, next we're moving to a new system that we've never played.
Oh, hold on.
Game on before.
We almost forgot. If you want to play Phantasy Star, you can get it on the Sega Master System. There may be some virtual releases, but probably one of the best ways I think to get it, there is a PS3 Sega Genesis compilation. It's Sonic's Sega Genesis Master, whatever. It's got something like 20 Sega Genesis games on it. Honestly, there's a lot of good stuff on there, including Phantasy Star 1 and 2, and Shining Force 1 and 2. Yeah. It's actually a pretty good compilation. Since it's for the PS3 and it's several years old at this point, you could probably pick it up on the cheap.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest.
I'd recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you can get all the Phantasy Stars.
Yeah. Well, 1 and 2, maybe 3.
No, they're all on there.
Are they?
I have it.
I have it too, I just didn't...
They're all on there.
Okay. You can get all the Phantasy Stars. Alright, so we're moving on to a new console.
We are moving on to a new console. We're still sticking with Sega. We're moving to the Sega CD.
Everybody's favorite
I know,
console.
everybody's favorite console, but it should be, because it contains 4 games from Working Designs that are 4 of the best RPGs in the whole world, and we're playing the first one, which is Lunar the Silver Star.
So, join us next time for the Sega CD Spectacular.
Yay!
Lunar. The Silver Star. Now I can get back to...
Oh, yes. You interrupted me earlier.
Yeah, you ain't getting rude asses walking in here when we're in the middle of reading. What happened?
I'm thinking about falling off the couch.
Russ, it was 3 months ago. Get over it.